What's happening, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the Books of Magic Omnibus Volume 3 from DC Comics. So, let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So, what we're looking at here is the third volume of Books of Magic. A lot of these stories have never been reprinted in any kind of collected edition. So I was very excited when I ended up getting this at the end of December. So this came out the last week of December, I believe. But here's the cover. And they give the credit to actually Chris Bachalo, which doesn't really look like a Chris Bachalo cover. The Books of Magic Omnibus, Volume 3 down here with the DC logo there, not the DC Black Label logo, because I know sometimes they put DC Black Label on these spines. Dylan Horrocks, Cy Spencer, Richard Case, and Dean Orbison credited as top billing there. And there's this piece right here. The book retailing for $125. Now, one thing I want to point out is how aesthetically pleasing this will look on your shelf if you have the previous volumes. And I understand the concerns with big books like this and people worried about them falling apart. And rightly so, because we've had that happen before with books from DC Comics just because of the weight of the paper. But, man, does that look nice. Like, just so consistent with the pieces of art up there, the Books of Magic logo, Omnibus, the creators, of course, and the DC logo. I love that. But even better if you keep your Sandman Universe all together. This is what they will look like with Lucifer. Now, I don't know if Lucifer has been reprinted with the new DC logo being part of the Black Label line, but this is the DC Vertigo, which these were originally printed in, but since DC did away with the Vertigo series, or the Vertigo imprint, they decided to go with the black logo. But I just love this. I don't know what the Sandman Omnis will look like next to these, because I have the Absolutes, but they don't have dust jackets. I do remember that. But man, that is just visually pleasing to me. And shifting this focus back to this, it's part of the Sandman Universe Classics. Here you have the Books of Magic logo, Omnibus Volume 3, and the creators that I mentioned here on the side. DC Black Label, this is where you're going to find it. Now, I had no idea there was more content they could put into a Books of Magic. I really thought Volume 2 was it. But I'll talk about what's collected in here and talk a little bit about the stories while showcasing the artwork. But before we do, I always like to show what's underneath the dust jacket. And, of course, these flaps right here, including the creators, little bio on them. And then a quote. That is the true meaning of your name. You are magic. Always remember that. Which is what the second story is about. This is what it looks like underneath the dust jacket. Is this both beautiful and terrifying image right here with the Books of Magic Omnibus. No volume number, though, underneath there. Alright, we're going to crack this open, talk a little bit about the character of Timothy Hunter. Not go into details as to what's happened previously, in case a lot of people haven't, because I know a lot of you all haven't read these stories. So I'll be focusing more on the artwork and the creative team behind this. Alright, let's go ahead and crack this open. You have some kind of painted splatter on this black pattern here. And you have the Books of Magic Omnibus Volume 3 right there. Big iconic lettering. The Books of Magic Omnibus Volume 3. I believe that is a Dean Ormson piece right there. The collection cover artist, Chris Bachalo. And who the creators are, of course, Neil Gaiman and John Bolton. And then featuring characters created by Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith, and Mike Dringenberg. Because there are some Sandman characters that appear through here. And the biggest question is, of course, do you need to have read Sandman to enjoy these stories? Absolutely not. Not at all. Here's your table of contents telling you where you're going to find each of these issues, including where the issue originally came out, who the cover artist was for the issue. So there is some John Bolton artwork in here. There's some Chris Bachalo covers. There is actually some Frank Quitely covers towards the end. There's an introduction here from Dylan Horrocks, who wrote the reintroduction of Timothy Hunter. And it mainly talks about where he was in life, coming from New Zealand, moving over to England for a little while, working at a bookstore, writing comics, and then he had a successful graphic novel, and then they asked him to write the continuing adventures of Books of Magic, and he wanted to take a little bit of a spin with it. Now, this book has 1,200 pages, and it retails for $125. And the contents of the book are the Trenchcoat Brigade 4-issue miniseries, The Names of Magic 1 through 5, Hunter, The Age of Magic 1 through 25, and Books of Magic, Life During Wartime. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I used to have the Trenchcoat Brigade trade paperback. I think that's the only trade that actually came out of this complete omnibus. I know for a fact there wasn't Hunter Age of Magic, and there wasn't Books of Magic. There wasn't any of that in trade paperback format. Maybe I remember the Names of Magic coming out in trade paperback format, but I can't for the life of me remember. So if you remember, please let me know in the comments down below. So the 5-issue miniseries here, it does show the return of the writer that helped write a lot of Timothy's adventures in the previous volume, and that is John A. Raber, and John Ridgway supplies the artwork. And this reunites the characters that was kind of a joke by John Constantine, if you're here in America, to form this group of 4 mysterious characters throughout the DC universe that all happen to wear a trench coat. So you have John Constantine, let's call him Constantine because that's what I've been calling him for over 30 years, who's the occult detective. You have the Phantom Stranger, who is pretty much the first of the magicians and the messenger of light. You have Dr. Occult here, who appeared, oh my goodness, I think he appeared, was it all the way in the 30s? He's a really obscure DC character, and the only reason I knew about him was because of Neil Gaiman, pretty much. He is the expert on supernatural, and then you have the Blind Crusader with the ability to travel through time and morph his body into a character named Rose, but most of the time he goes by Mr. E. That's right. So this group is brought together by the Phantom Stranger. There's a serial killings going around, and it's up to them to investigate to see exactly what's happening. And as it turns out, it's the personification of misery that's going around. It's being cut loose upon the world. And that's what this is. And these are characters that have interacted before with the character of Timothy Hunter. So I keep mentioning that name, Timothy Hunter. What are we talking about? Well, that is what everybody calls him, and it's not his fault because it happened long before Harry Potter, and that is this kid right here. So this guy right here, you have covers by John Bolton coming back. This time, Dylan Horrocks is joined by, I believe this is Richard Case that does the artwork for this and most of the ongoing series. So we have the character of Timothy Hunter, who was the main protagonist in the Books of Magic Omnibus Volumes 1 and 2, who is destined to become the world's greatest magician or sorcerer, if you will. Now, in this, it takes place a couple of years after the events of Books of Magic, because in Books of Magic, he was a young kid. He wasn't even a teenager. It started when he was 12 years old. Magic was brought to him, and he accepted it, and everything came at a cost. And this talks about the loss of everything that's happened before this. So it's kind of reinventing the character, making him grow up a little bit, because now he's 14, almost 15 years old. You have a group of villains that are after him. The Trenchcoat Brigade does make an appearance here, trying to protect him, but he is being pretty much protected by this character known as the Walker, who is taking him on a journey to what is known as the White School, which is, again, it's a magic school where he'll go and learn his full potential. Now, in here, you're going to see a couple of other characters, too, like the half-human, half-fairy, this young lady right here, who turns into an enemy at first and then sees the lighter side of things. And I know I'm going to butcher her name. Yolanthe, I think is how you pronounce it. And then you have Nick Bearclaw right there, who's kind of your cliche character, but these is pretty much your new supporting cast. And a lot of them will carry over into the ongoing series. So let's talk about that a little bit, and that's where this starts. So we kick it off with a 6-issue story arc known as The Lake of Fire. And this is all set during Tim's last weeks at the White School. And he meets this young girl right here This is Kalesh, who's a mysterious girl. She's escaping the skin eaters, and she's asking for help. And the 6-issue story arc is pretty much about him trying to help her, trying to adapt to the school. And it's a really interesting story because all of this, without being thrown in your face, takes place around the gem world. If you all remember that series, the Amethyst and the gem world. And that's actually where she's from. And there's a big secret and a twist with her character later on that is very endearing and almost heartbreaking. So we're going to skip a little bit because, like I said, these stories are broken up. 7 is kind of like your fill-in issue. That one's drawn by Chris McLaughlin, I think is what his name is. But the rest of this is drawn by Richard Case. And just showcasing, it's almost like a coming of age and the character of Timothy Hunter growing up and learning to just accept his destiny of becoming the greatest sorcerer after learning the whole name thing. I thought that was that was obviously in your face about, being true to yourself and who you really are. But there's wars that happen through here. You're going to see the supporting cast from the 5-issue miniseries happening here. There's an Evil Gene story arc in here. I think that one's only 5 issues. But what's really cool is that this really serves as a good jumping on point if you had not read the previous Books of Magic. It's a little more grown up. It's a little more adult type of storytelling. Not in the sense that it's graphic or violent or sexual in any kind of way, but the themes are a little more adultish. Now, speaking of adultish, let's go ahead and talk about Books of Magic, Life During Wartime. So I was censoring the last page of the final issue of Hunter because I didn't want to ruin that for anybody. Now, this definitely kicks it up a notch. This goes into a lot of mature themes. There's a lot of violence in here. There's a lot of language in here. Tim is now going by Tim, not really Timothy Hunter. He's a lot more grown up. The artwork seems a lot more mature. I hate to even say that, but this is Dean Ormston, who of course is the co-creator of Black Hammer. I love his art, but seeing it here for the first time, I had never read any of these issues, by the way. Seeing it here for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because it feels like a weird mix of Chris Bachalo with Mike Mignola, and even some, like a dash of indie type of art in here. It's graphic, it's violent, and Tim is surrounded by a new supporting cast. Some of this is actually co-plotted, or at least he gave his blessings by Neil Gaiman. Most of the covers are done by Frank Quitely. And like I said, the artwork is mostly supplied by Dean Ormston. Now, Steve Yao actually does one of the issues in here, and Duncan Fegredo does a couple of the fill-in issues. But for the most part, it is Dean Ormston drawing this. So, like I said, this is Tim, now a little more mature, a lot more mature than when he first appeared, and having to deal with this war that is happening between two realms and being caught again in the middle of it. So, it's a very interesting take on it. It's like this is a complete different, fresh start for the character. You really didn't need to have read any of it coming into this, because the way that Cy Spurrier writes it, he just throws you into the middle of a story, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the way that he writes his particular stories. So you'll have the fairy folk back in here, and you'll have a couple of characters that may show up that have previously shown up. But it's mainly the characters of Tim Hunter in this. There's a character I can't say because it's a big spoiler, and John Constantine and Satana make a big part, or play a big role in this. Now, all the way in the back, you have an afterword by Cy Spurrier before this page. You have some pencil stuff. Look how creepy that is. This is all by Dean Ormston. Oh, and then Richard Case doing some sketches. And this is development art by Dylan Horrocks, who, like I said, wrote the Hunter series and the 5-issue miniseries, The Name of Magic. Now, 1,200 pages. That's an awesome picture. Let's check out this binding. So it is a lot of pages, but that is an awfully big eye. And I've stretched the spine a few times, because with these books you have to. And it lays over pretty good, honestly. It does try to shut on you a little bit. Here, let's actually look at the extras again, because I don't want to spoil what happens later on. It does try to shut on you a little bit, but I think that's just After a couple of read-throughs, he'll be fine. But that's it. That ends the Books of Magic as of now. So that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you have the previous volumes, if you've never read The Adventures of Timothy Hunter, if you're reading the new Books of Magic, are you enjoying those? I haven't had a chance to read those, so I'm curious how the character is portrayed, and if any of his supporting cast is back. Smash that like button, please, on the way out. Check out our Patreon and Spread Shop. Amazing ways to support the channel. And everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.